God doesn't care how successful you are, is what I titled this video. And obviously, take that with a grain of salt because when we try to define what an all powerful, all knowing, unconditionally loving God cares and doesn't care about is making bold claims. But this seems to be a major theme in my life recently. I've had a number of conversations with many people, friends and people close to me, about this topic, and it's something that has been a major theme of my life, something I've thought about, particularly in my time of quarantine. I made a video a few weeks back. It's called Production-Based Salvation, which I talked a little more about my experience with kind of the same theme. But today I want to say more about it because I have more to say, and it keeps coming up in my life. And I wanted to talk about particularly what does it mean to be successful and the pressure to accomplish that. So let's qualify success. What does success mean by most people's standards? And I think it comes down mostly to two things: financial stability, or maybe even financial surplus, and accomplishing goals. And actually, now that I think about it, I might add like status or fame to an extent to that list, because when we think about who are the peak successful people, when we think of what it means to be successful, is like celebrities and best-selling authors or people who have some kind of status, and people tied to that status, some kind of wealth, and people who are very accomplished in society. I think that is our definition of what it means to be successful, which obviously varies for different people, but there are, at the core of success, like if success for you is to have a family and to be able to provide for your family and to have a job that you've wanted to have for your life and working towards that job, at the core of that is like accomplishing some kind of goal, a family and a good job, a job that has financial stability, and then maybe some kind of status that goes along with that, a job that people respect. And in many ways, I don't intend to say that those are bad things, and certain people's definition of success and pursuing that is not necessarily bad, but that is not the end for which we are made. Did Jesus say, "Blessed are the wealthy, blessed are the college educated, blessed are the accomplished and the successful"? No, he did not. Did Jesus pick the scribes and the scholars to be his apostles? Did he pick the most accomplished, the well-known, the high-status individuals to follow him? No, he did not. And frankly, much the opposite of that. He calls the first apostles, he calls Peter, James, and John, are these lowly fishermen, not even good ones because they're not catching anything when he calls them. But he calls them, and he calls them to leave everything behind: their jobs that they've worked for, their financial stability, potentially their families. Like James and John are in the boat with their dad, and he tells them to leave everything behind. Same with the rich young man. He comes to Jesus, says he's doing great, and he's doing well for himself, possibly what we would define as successful. And Jesus says, "Give away everything you have." And he won't do it because he can't. He clings to that success. Even if we look at Jesus himself, God incarnate, made man, the ideal of what it means to be human. Jesus says, "Foxes have dens, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Jesus, by his society's standards, was unsuccessful in his ministry, essentially just like a wandering guy with a band of people who need to look to other people to provide their food and provide their money. Jesus doesn't have an established job or a job with status or wealth or anything like that would probably consider him to be successful. Yet for us, for our lives, for probably almost everyone, we so easily define ourselves by success in that same way. And we think we're failing, and we get anxious and we get stressed if we are not on the path towards that, if we're not pursuing a goal and pursuing something pursuing being accomplished in our lives, having some kind of status, having some kind of financial stability, and pursuing success. And the point and the theme of what I want to get across in this video is that, as we can see through the Gospels, that's not the end for which we are made. I want to compare. Let's say we compare two people, a professional athlete and a school janitor. Let's say the professional athlete has worked incredibly hard all his life, accomplished a lifelong dream, and he now has a family, a wife and kids. He is wealthy from this high status, high paying job, but he rarely gives to others, is rarely given back along the way, and really has no meaningful prayer life, no relationship with Christ. And on the other hand, we have, say, a school janitor that didn't go to college, makes ends meet with his salary, and works a job that is seen as pretty low status. Like a school janitor, we would probably see kind of lower on the totem pole, but yet he gives what he has to others, serves the people around him, loves his neighbor, and has a deep relationship with God. Which one is more successful? Which one is better off, and which one is successful where it counts? Because the end for which we are made is not financial stability, it's not accomplishing goals, it's not achieving status, it's heaven. It's joining relationship with God, and that is what he's calling to. And how do we accomplish that? Is by loving God and loving neighbor. And that's the path that we're on. If we accomplish that, if nothing else but those things, that's success. Because that is what we're made for. And again, not to say like that we ought to be lazy and we ought to not work hard and to not use the gifts that we have, and that achieving things is a bad thing. Obviously not, but it's not the end that we're made for. It's not everything in our life, and heaven is everything. Jesus is everything, and that is the end that we're made for. And I just want to say that this is something that, looking back on my life, is interesting that I am saying, and that I have come to as a thought even in my mind, because my entire life I've been grinding all the time, working super hard, pursuing this kind of world idea of success, and that's everything, because I bought in to what the world says you need to be successful in these ways. And I've come to a point in my life now where that, at least right now, at least where my head is right now, is not the end for me. And that's not everything for me. And I just want to share that. And clearly it's something God's putting on my heart, because I've had this conversation with many people in just the past few weeks, that you don't need to be successful in the way the world defines it to be worthy, because that is not what defines our worth, and that's not the end that we're made for. The end that we're made for is heaven, and that is our primary pursuit in life. So in a very practical way, I want to close this off with maybe something practical, or maybe not practical whatsoever if we think about it, but can be practical. What if you spent less time working, or you spent less time pursuing goals or trying to achieve financial stability or status or whatever, and took that time away, gave up that time, and spent more of that time in prayer? What if you started going to daily mass? What if you started attending Eucharistic adoration regularly, building a prayer life, praying the liturgy of the hours every day, praying a rosary every day? And what if those were the foundational blocks of your life? And that what you felt you needed to do most that day was not to work, was not to get money or to get status or accomplish goals, but to pray? What if that was the number one thing you had to accomplish that day, and that nothing else mattered if you didn't pray? What if that's what your life looked like? And what if everything else was put aside to make room for prayer? In whatever practical way that makes sense for you, maybe make that a challenge of your life this week.